Hi, everyone. I'm Gary Summers, and welcome to the audio edition of Mind, Body, Soul, a show about your mental, physical, and spiritual wellness. I have two wonderful people here today from the local wellness collective. I have Jennifer Collins and Josh Sullivan. Guys, say hello to everybody out there who's listening.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, everyone.
So before we start, just give people and whatever way you guys want to do this. You seem to work pretty well together. So just tell us a little bit about what you do, how you got started, and what listeners can expect to hear today.
Well, I think it actually starts with a bit of a backstory, and I guess that will kind of build the backbone of how we're even here right now. So both myself and Jennifer, I'll tell them a little bit of my story, how I got started, and she can tell hers. Is we were in this wellness industry in our own way. I was running a gym, I was running a smoothie bar. I was definitely approaching health and wellness from the movement side and a little bit of the nutrition. And with everything that's happened in our world over the last 3 years, things change. A lot of things change, and the way that we approach now being able to go to a gym or hang out with people has completely turned upside down. And some people may look at that as a really bad thing, but we took it right away as what can we turn into positives with this, and how can we innovate it to turn into a growing and changing world.
Sure.
So it's funny that we're doing this on what I call the day of twos. So 22222. I think everything happens for a reason, and that's kind of what I'll let Jennifer chime in. Is we met at the perfect time. I call it divine timing. We met when we were both struggling with a direction for our business, and we had passion and a lot of it to see health and wellness grow in this province. And that was the start of the first seed that planted. So Jennifer, I'll let you kind of run off that story there on how we met and then what kind of got created from that.
I always laugh because I guess we just got so far into stuff. Everything just kind of happened and blossomed all at once that I still remember the first meeting we had. I sat down and my business was closing, and then he had a space open, and it just all seemed to fit perfectly. And when we sat down to have coffee, I remember some reason somehow spilled coffee all over myself. And just was like, and it didn't matter. It was fine because we were both on the same page about a lot of stuff.
Did you guys know? Did you guys know each other before this started?
We didn't know each other, but as weird as it was, we had a lot of mutual friends, which is interesting because I feel like Newfoundland is like that anyways. Everyone like kind of knows each other. It's like, oh yeah, you were doing this or that. So we knew of each other, but had never met.
Okay.
I had individuals, and I think you've had them on the show as well. We're actually doing weekly classes in my studio that had been booking seminars with Josh. So we always had this kind of like, it was sort of like the outskirts, but the interesting thing was we had everything kind of set in place, and it was like two puzzle pieces. Both of our businesses like fit together perfectly. And then they both just closed and the pandemic happened. So it was kind of an interesting time, but we just continued to get together based on, I guess, just a passion for health and wellness in the community. Again, identifying 3 pillars of health being just food and food security, mental health and wellness, and then physical movement. So then starting off from that, we ended up having weekly meetings and integrating with the food line. And now we basically do deliveries of food hampers. And the upcoming year, we'll be working on moving our nonprofit into operating in the next couple of pillars that we had kind of set in stone. But the way everything happened was definitely serendipitous. It's wild.
Yeah, we both had so much passion for what we were doing in the industry. So, mine being running a gym, helping people move better, helping people, with their mind, their mental health. And then when all that shut down, I didn't really know where to put all that energy. I was working, 16-hour days to make this thing flourish. And it got halted very quickly to a very low number. And I immediately, instead of just saying, well, this is the way it is, it was like, okay, well, what can we do now? Like, where can we put this energy and passion and drive that we have? And we immediately saw how food banks and food security was a huge issue that wasn't talked about. It's very much a thing that I think people are aware of and becoming more and more aware of. But once we got our feet on the ground and saw that the food banks were, having quality issues or having supply issues, or how they could deliver some of those supplies to people in need, we just saw an opportunity to say, you know what, like, this feels good in my heart and in my soul. Let's see what we can do to help. And immediately we just started connecting with the right people. Again, I feel like everything happens for a reason. We knew people to connect with and started the conversation, as they say. And
go ahead, continue.
And from there, like I said, it just kind of led one thing to the next, where now we are actually helping the food banks get supplies and distribute supplies, and that's food and food security.
So you're exclusively doing that right now. That's your prime objective right now, is to source supplies, good supplies for food banks, and getting supplies to food banks. Is that what our listeners
right now? Yeah, Jennifer, run.
Sorry, yeah. I'm here with like all my notes like pre-done, and Josh doesn't have, he's nailing it, and I'm like slurring all over stuff. And so what we do now currently is we're actually one of the first, I don't know any other project actually in North America that has connected a food line emergency service with a delivery service in a metro region. So basically,
so just explain that now. Explain that.
Yeah. So we're the first ones to actually connect with, in May of 2020, the Food First NL had started the community food line. So just because everything had shut down and COVID again kind of flipped everything in all different directions. So they started this food line that you could call if you just needed some food. And that very, let's look at it, fortunately, unfortunately, grew into just a giant need for low barrier access to food. And so what we did is identified, obviously there was a barrier of transportation, so we overcame that. And now we're just, it's nonstop. So
when you say there was a barrier with transportation, what did you mean by that?
There's a lot of individuals that can't get to food banks properly. They don't have a car. Right now we have cost of gas also is giant. We deliver food hampers to individuals who have vehicles in the driveway. We deliver to high-end neighborhoods. We deliver everywhere. Again, with no judgment, no barriers, no boundaries. We're all the same people helping each other out. Food, we need it as a foundation of our health. So that's kind of been one of our mandates. And it also fell in line with the three pillars that we were kind of approaching in increasing community health. So
I think that what the point you made just then about no judgment, everybody has a story. And unless you decide to walk in their shoes, then you have no idea what your neighbor or your friend or someone you met, you have no idea what story they have. And Michael J. Fox said one time, he said, be nice to negative people because you have no idea what's going on in their lives. So do you just talk to food banks, or do you also take orders from individual people, or do the food banks communicate to you what their requirement is?
So the food banks will basically contact through the food line. And then when that gets overflowed, unfortunately, as we've seen, then they come to us. So basically it's mostly through the food line, but we're also doing meals from Hungry Heart as well as gift cards. Okay,
so when you explain to me the food line, what do you mean by the food line?
The community food line is just a phone number that's been set up, and it runs, it's provincial now, and it runs in line with the federal 211. Again, it started off as just an area where if you didn't know, let's just say you were experiencing food insecurity and you didn't know where to go or whatever, you could call this phone number.
Food line. Okay.
Yeah, and then now, and they would direct you. Now they can actually add, again, first one in North America as far as we know. So we're again kind of creating our future as we go here. But yeah, you can actually get services and have food delivered the next day. Okay,
so we think we talked about how you met. I think Josh, what did Josh say? He threw a cup of coffee in your,
she was just so nervous to meet me. She spilled coffee all over
herself.
Yeah,
that was it, right? So I yelled at him. I was like, just give me a tissue.
I can imagine if people were kind of fast forwarding and all they heard me say was so just threw a cup of coffee in your face. That's not
Exactly.
That's not what
that's
happened.
the grab. That's the grab.
That's the
That's
grab.
actually what you can use as your snippet for marketing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we talked
But-
about the past. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Jennifer.
No, I was just gonna say, I just want to touch on the authenticity of it all. Like a lot of times, as you navigate these nonprofits and you navigate this, area of community, like authenticity is so important. Like you have to be able to laugh at yourself. Like I stood up after spilling coffee on myself and very professionally walked out of Starbucks.
Well, I always say, if you can't laugh at yourself, you have no idea what you look like sleeping.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
like it. Gary's got the quotes.
So we talked about the past, how this came to be. We talked a bit about the present, certainly what's happening now with your nonprofit. Are there any other things about presently now that you wanted to talk about and let people know what's going on?
I guess presently we can talk. We've mentioned it a couple times, and people are probably wondering what we mean by it. So we mean like our pillars of health, and we're kind of approaching that separately in our own businesses. So as much as we're focusing on growing this, we also have things that we do as our other jobs as well. Where
Sure.
I run a website where I help people with, just like I do, movement, nutrition, mindset, motivation, keeping people accountable for their health. And Jennifer also has a side that she does as well with like spirituality, astrology, and helping people understand, why things might happen the way they do.
Sure. Okay.
So that we call them, we looked at it as like, what is the foundation of health? So it's like, all right, like when you take everything away, take the
Yeah.
social media away, take
Totally.
the ego stuff away.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it, what's the foundation of our health? And we created these pillars where we believed that had to do with like movement. It had to do with wellness of the mind, and it had to do with nutrition and being able to, give yourself food.
Yeah.
So we broke it down into like these simple little pillars, and have just been building upon those pillars ever since. So in every aspect of our lives and our businesses, we're just looking at, all right, well, how can all of these things help structure an amazing community together, so that no matter which way you poke your head in on it and say like, hey, this is kind of cool, it leads to something bigger and better for you and for all of us. This is not just stuff for us. We want this to grow into something that everybody is flourishing from.
So you just gave me an idea. As we move into our recording studio next month, we can certainly look at a round table on fitness, which I'm sure Josh you'd love to be part of. And I don't know if you know Mike McInnes, Michael McIsaac.
I would say
Mike
I
is
would say most of us, know each other in the industry.
Michael is a kinesiologist, and for you, Jennifer, I mean, when we look at the spirituality side of horoscope and palm reading and things like that could be a very interesting roundtable discussion to talk about stuff like that. So let's move now into the future, and what have you mapped out going forward?
So
What
one
are
thing I
your
just wanna-
big plans?
Yeah, so one of the things when we were asked about, I guess, the topic for the interview that kind of came to my mind was past, present, future, in a way that you can also relate, I guess, what's happened with us personally, but also to how you create your future and how you live in those three areas of life for the most part. Because I found personally that even though we covered over it fairly lightly earlier, but both of our businesses failed. Not necessarily failed in a bad way, but they just ended, right? And what happens with that is you have to come to terms with that in a way that nobody really wants to. Like, we don't talk about those moments where we go, okay, you know what, I grieved that. I grieved the loss of that. That was definitely a chapter in my life that happened, and now we need to move forward. So talking about emotions as energy, because it's just energy and motion is our emotions. Once we kind of move through those, that's when I think we start creating from the present moment, which is when we found that things just kind of really started to flow in a very positive light. I mean, it was always kind of serendipitous anyway, but it really began to move forward then. And then you kind of go, okay, well, I'm going to actually map my future from my present, rather than kind of thinking from my past and mapping from my past, because then that doesn't necessarily serve a lot of people either. So yeah, I know I love how the spirituality stuff and astrology gets touched in with palm reading and stuff. One thing I'd love to do would actually be talking about the cycles of our life, because a lot of astrology that we don't really understand is just actually it's all cycles, and we can kind of map things out that way, and then know the cycles that are coming up, and then also kind of work with them, work backwards from there. But presently in the future, what we're working on is, again, creating from the present, but mapping out our future in a way that we can now build on those pillars that we have. So one thing I always keep in mind is that, you know, it's fine to say, okay, well, we need to take care of our mental health and we need to take care of our physical health. But if you're hungry,
Absolutely.
I mean, that's pretty much a foundational issue, right? So,
well, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I mean, you know, the basic needs, if they're not met, you can forget about anything else that comes above it, right? So that's the core of our being right there.
absolutely.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
And
So-
I mean, funny enough, I mean, we saw it, just like Jennifer said, we saw it in our lives, and it was just like working with it in the present moment. I mean, both of us were going through what definitely you can call like a grieving, where we had to understand like, okay, we're moving into an entirely new chapter of our lives. We get to create what we want it to look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, like that goes for anyone that's listening to this. That's what's cool about this, is that there were people who are listening to this now who are nodding their heads being like, you know what, like I have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can start literally today. Like you have the choices that you want in life, journaling them out. There's lots of things. I mean, we teach and preach exactly what we're talking about and how to do it. And the more people that get involved, I truly believe, like, pay it forward. It happens exponentially.
And that's what this program is all about. And so it's funny that you'd say, not funny, Josh, is that you'd say, you know, you had to have a vision. If anybody read the book by Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of the habits he says you start with the end in mind. Like if you don't know where you're going to be, like how are you going to figure out a roadmap to get there, right?
I love it. I love it. Yeah, we say, like, you know, create a vision board. That's a great one too.
I've got someone who is going to be on later on how to teach people how to create a vision board. And when I speak at conventions, I always put it up and I say, you know, the best gift you could give yourself is to create a vision board, personally and professionally. And the reason why most people don't do it is because they don't understand how it works. And as you're talking about it now, I'll just spend just a second on it, because really what a vision board is how you can visualize the life for yourself. And once you have that and look at it every single day of your life, your brain doesn't know the difference between what happens inside of it and what happens outside of it. So once you create that vision that you have and you get excited about that vision, and once you've got it there, sure, 90% of the work is done. All you have to do is put a plan in place to get there. Like it's so simple.
It's right. That's what I love that you just said about that, is because it's so simple. It is. You just got to do the work, and create the vision. And every small step that you take is creating that a reality.
Yeah. So anybody who pushes back, and if I'm speaking to 500 people, you know, I ask who heard of a vision board, who has one, you might get 5-10 people putting it up. And I say the reason why people, and most people here who are listening, I hope not, but I suspect will probably dismiss it because they don't understand it. But we use electricity every single day of our lives. We have no idea how it works, but we enjoy the benefits of it. Let me tell you, really, when we do the session on vision boards, really, I hope everybody gets a chance to sit in on and watch how to create a vision board. I had a quick story. I had a guy who came up to me after one of my sessions, and he said, "Gary, I really like what you said about vision boards." He said, I've always wanted to have a red Mustang convertible. I said, "Well, go find a car you want, cut it out, put it on your fridge." And he came up. I saw him at the gym there a couple of years ago, and he said, "Gary, remember I was talking to you about this thing I wanted, the red Mustang convertible?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You know what's sitting in my driveway?" He said, "A red Mustang convertible." He said, "Because I took your advice, I cut out the car I wanted, and I put it on the fridge, and within a year I had the car." I said, "See, it works. It works. You just have to, it's a simple process. Like none of our brains, the people who figured it out, their brains are no different than anybody else's.
No.
They just figured it out.
You got it.
It's really simple.
That's why I am so passionate about talking about this, because of exactly what you just said. I have done these things now in my life, and I have seen and reaped the benefits from it. And it's like, this is not a secret anymore, guys. Like,
Yeah.
a lot of people listen to this stuff and they hear it and they go, yeah, like, it sounds kind of weird. Like, how is that going to happen to me? It's happened to enough people that there's energy going on in this planet that you can't explain, but I'm telling you, you can control it.
And that's where you learn to create from the present moment, not the past or the future moments, right? So you're just basically going to create from right here, know what you want and figure out what you want and go for it without any boundaries or barriers. Because that's actually,
sorry, go
you
ahead.
know?
Yeah. I know, Josh, you like quotes, and I'd like to say I made those quotes I gave. I made them up, but I didn't. But I hear some really good ones, and I heard another one. I heard another one the other day, which I thought was pretty good. It said, you know, when one door closes, another door opens up. Except when you were in prison, then it closes, then it locks when it closes.
That one's got a plot twist to it.
Oh yeah. Guys, I guess let's finish up and just can you give me, each of you, can you take a minute and just give our listeners some advice that they can use now to help them with adversity? I know we've given them some pretty good tidbits right now, but can each of you just summarize before we finish up here?
Do you want to rock, paper, scissors? I'll go first. I'll give you a minute.
Go,
I'll
Jennifer.
go first. Okay. Basically, just touching on the past, present, future. If we learn to accept and process the past, give yourself time to do that. It might be messy. You might cry. You might eat cupcakes. Whatever you got to do, take time, feel those emotions and process them, because we got to get that energy and motion moving. Then we're going to create a brand new canvas and create from the moment. Once you learn to do that, your life just absolutely changes. And then that's when you can visualize the future. That's when you can really just go, you know what? There's no limits. There's infinite possibilities. What do I want to create today for me and my sole purpose and my passion? And feel free to do that. And listen, it's messy, but go for it. You'll find some beautiful people along the way.
The greatest burdens that we carry in our lives are the thoughts that we have in our head.
Yep, totally.
Josh, do you want to end it off here, buddy?
I mean, that was well said, Jennifer. I got to say, and Gary, same with you with those quotes. The only thing I can add to that is, I love saying this, is your vibe will attract your tribe. If you think better, and if you move better, and if you take care of yourself, you can take care of everyone else around you that much more.
Great conversation, guys. Thanks very much. Really appreciate the time you've taken out of your busy day to talk to people. And basically, what all of these interviews are about is giving people hope.
Absolutely.
Hope and possibility. You know, the worst thing anybody can do is to give up hope, and you know, when you get to that stage, that can be problematic. Again, guys, thanks very much. It's been another great therapy session for me. I'm becoming the smartest person in the world.
We love it. The more people we talk to and the more people we connect with, the better.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Thank you.